We're back again. We're following up on the draft. If you're going to do a bunch of draft videos, you got to do a recap. I don't really love draft grades overall because a lot of the time it's just hard to tell. Nothing is finished. There's a lot of free agency still to go, and draft and free agency have to be combined. But there were some teams that I liked more than others, some picks I liked more than others, some things that I thought were absolutely insane. So we'll do some winners and losers. I have them written down here. I got a few teams, and then I have a list of weirdos, which I can't really decide if it was good or bad, or we don't know yet, or what are you doing? So there's a bunch of those teams as well. We still do have some more videos to come. We're going to have a bunch of them ripping off finishing the NBA season, although there's still free agency. I'm sure we'll do some more of that. In fact, at the end of this video, I want to touch on a couple of free agents that I find interesting, even if they're not at the top of the list. But I do want to do all-time top 10. Man, it's hard to figure out. Did Steph Curry make it in? He's on the cusp. I'm trying to finalize it. We're going to do a video for that. I want to do a current top 10 also, and then I want to check in with MLB. We haven't done a baseball video in a while. And I want to do kind of a almost mid-season. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff, and Aaron Judge is just going to run away with the whole league, I hope. We have plus 1,500 Aaron Judge to win the home run title. That would be pretty sweet. But today's basketball, so let's dive in. Before we do that, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment telling you which team, the Kings, did the dumbest stuff. And, you know, I guess you could talk about which team you like the most, but it's more fun to rag on the silly ones. So let's dive in. Now, from the top, I have the Magic as a winner. A lot of people are ragging on them for not bringing in Paolo for a workout and then drafting him. It is weird, but I do think they were just keeping their options open and seeing if they could trade that pick. And then once nothing materialized, they probably thought that Paolo was the best pick for them, and that's what they took. So I have them as a winner for not being bullied into taking a player they didn't want to just because it would look weird if they didn't. So I like what they did. And who else? Caleb Houston from Michigan, not bad. I mean, I'm not going to go crazy over second round picks. So, yeah, I liked the Magic draft, and I think when you put Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero together, that's going to be really scary because they're both 6'10", both can play the wing. I think they're going to find a way to play together with another big on the floor. That's the important part. If they can figure that out, and Franz can play the 3, which I think he can, and Paolo play the 4, and then you put a big, I don't know who that's going to be, Carter a lot of the time. If they bring back Mo Bamba, we'll see. But that is a really big team that's still agile and quick on the perimeter. And if you need to play Paolo and Franz together as a really small ball 4-5, you probably could do that too. So I really want to see what that looks like. I'm intrigued, and I have them as a winner. The next one, the Thunder, not as much because of Chet, although that's a good pick, and it makes plenty of sense for a team that's still rebuilding, doesn't need him to dominate right now. But you look here, they got Ousmane Dieng, who isn't my favorite player in the draft, but has untapped raw potential. So you got to understand what they did there, and they didn't give up much to the Knicks to get it. I mean, they gave up 3 picks, but that sounds like a lot, 3 first-round picks, sure. But when you're OKC and you have this stockpile of picks, they still have like 2 first-rounders for every draft upcoming. You can't fit that many players onto the roster, right? You got to make decisions eventually. So it felt like they started to cash in some of those chips. They must have liked Dieng. And when you have Chet there and also Ousmane Dieng, you're not expecting Dieng to be the big man. So I think some of those issues that you have with him, or that I have with him, although the shooting ability isn't all the way there, but Chet can do that too, kind of start to make more sense. It's like when you think about if Ben Simmons, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the Nets? They're in my weirdo column, right? So we'll get to that eventually. But if you have Ben Simmons with Kyrie and KD, it makes more sense than if you have him with 5 people who can't shoot and the floor isn't spaced. I feel the same way about Dieng. If you have him paired with Holmgren, who can both defend the perimeter, which is up for debate, I guess, but can defend the rim at an elite level, which we don't know if Dieng can do. And then on offense, he can stretch the floor out to the perimeter while Dieng kind of creates on the ball. It could make some sense there. But more importantly, I like the Jalen Williams pick because he can just stretch the floor and shoot it, and you don't need him to totally create with the ball in his hands because you already have that from SGA and Giddey and a bunch of those guys. So they're starting to put a lot of talent together. They drafted another Jalen Williams, by the way, which is just absolutely insane. I guess that was second round. Yeah. So 2 Jalen Williams and a Chet and an Ousmane Dieng in one draft. And then I feel like they got somebody else. Maybe not. But in any case, they loaded up. They got young talent in there and consistent, right? They figured out that they could get high upside guys that other teams identified as low floor guys because they have all these picks to cash in with later, and they got to figure out whether they're good or not. So it made sense for them to take Chet the whole time, and I'm considering them a winner, even if those players weren't the highest on my board individually. I think getting young talent in there so you can make a decision on SGA and maybe trade him if you need to, although I would just sign him at this point. You're not paying anybody else. I think they did what they needed to do from a front office perspective, even if the specific picks weren't exactly what I thought they would be. Next, I had the Pistons. I mean, the fact that they fall into Jaden Ivey to pair with Cade Cunningham, A+, my favorite move of the draft. For sure, they had nothing to do with it. The Kings just dropped the ball. They're on my list of losers. I don't know how many times I can say it and give it away before we get there. But, man, Ivy and Cade is just really scary. And then, who knows what the Knicks were doing? They're on the list of weirdos. But they end up getting Jalen Duren from the Hornets to the Knicks to the... Who knows what ended up happening here. But he ends up in Detroit. It looked like he was going to end up in a million different places, but he ends up in Detroit. And that does a couple things. One, it gives them a rim protector, which they could really use. Two, they were thinking about getting in on the Ayton sweepstakes in free agency, it seemed, but this allows them to spend money elsewhere. They cleared the Jeremy Grant contract. They have a lot of maneuverability now, and 2 really good guards to fill up that spot, plus Sadiq Bey as a 2/3, and then Duren, who's probably going to play at the 5 a bunch, at least 20 minutes a game, which is all you really need a center for these days anyway. So I really liked what Detroit was able to do. As you look further down, I think they made some other moves as well. I don't know if they technically had any other. Yeah, I mean, they traded this one away. So many trades in the second round. I'm trying not to get bogged down with who else they ended up with. They ended up getting a foreign prospect who they'll stash overseas just in case. But in any case, I can't overstate it enough. The Cade with Jaden Ivey combo is out of this world. I mean, Pistons win the all NBA League Pass award, right? Everyone's going to want to watch them. Cade was already good. You add the athleticism and spark of Ivy at the 2 guard, and both of them can shoot it. Streaky, but both of them can shoot it. Both of them can handle, both of them can pass, both of them can get to the rim, both of them can defend. There's a lot to work on, but if this combo works out, you got to look out for them. Pistons, definitely my favorite draft. But they didn't really do anything. It was really just a product of the Kings being terrible at what they do. I liked this Pacers pick. I'm marking them as a winner. And if we look elsewhere, Pavers, not exactly what we're looking for. But Pacers get Gonzaga prospect. And where else? This was a foreign one traded to Milwaukee. And did they get anyone in a trade? Kendall Brown from Baylor. So they got some bodies in there that they really needed. But it's really all around Mathurin. And what I think this will do for them is allow them to trade Brogdon, which they desperately have needed to do for a while. And if you look at the Pacers depth chart, you really don't know what to do with them at this point. And because of that, I like the Mathurin pick because, I mean, they don't even have shooting guard on the depth chart. That's a new one. You don't see that much. You really don't. Let's try to look elsewhere. Here we go. So you got Brogdon, LeVert, Holiday. Sabonis is not here. I mean, come on. What are we doing, guys? Here we go. and LeVert is on the Cavs. What are we talking about? Brogdon, Hield, Halliburton. Halliburton at the 3 is ridiculous. I think what will end up happening here is Hield will move to the bench where he probably should be. Brogdon will probably be traded. You'll have Halliburton and Mathurin at the 1 and 2 if Mathurin can handle starting right away, which probably won't happen. Hield will end up starting, but he'll have his job taken away. And then you have Duarte, and then you see what happens with Turner if you want to keep him or trade him. But at least you have the Halliburton-Mathurin thing to build around. It's similar to the Pistons, right? You have the 2 guard spots, and you can work out what to do elsewhere. And so I like what the Pacers have done here, especially the way that Halliburton and Mathurin fit together, because Halliburton is your point guard. But both of them want to handle the ball, and they both have size and both have length. And that's going to be a really annoying matchup for a lot of other teams. So I really like the way the Pacers project. And some people thought that that was a little early for Mathurin, but I don't think so. When you're looking down at this list, after 5, anywhere from 6 to probably, at least 10, but probably more towards 16, this list right here is fairly interchangeable. And Mathurin was probably, along with Sohan, but more of a specific pick there, my favorite on that list. So I was happy that they went with him, and I think they did a good thing, and I think they've been really prudent in how to turn this team around. And I won't be shocked at all if you see some more trades down the pipeline with Brogdon and maybe even Turner, depending on how deep they want to go into this rebuild. But the 2 guards, looking good. Let's keep going. Spurs, love it. Sohan, a perfect pick for the Spurs. But what are they doing, by the way? Because I can't really talk about. They had a few picks that I really liked. Branham from Ohio State I liked better than some of the guards above him. We didn't talk about him in the original one. Wesley is just like probably a bench scorer, which is fine. They could probably use that. They're going to get rid of some of their people that they have to pay. So I liked how deep they went in the draft, but I really loved the Sohan pick. But I don't want to overstate that. Sohan is a perfect guy for Pop. He should write letters to Popovich asking him to stay for the entirety of his career, because I could see him turning that into something really good. Not that Sohan is Kawhi Leonard. It's not even close to the same thing. But the offense that Pop was able to unlock in Kawhi wasn't always there as a prospect. And I can at least see something down that road, even if it's not a perfect comparison. So I really like the fit there. And what they can do with Sohan as a Swiss Army knife kind of guy. But now they're talking about trading Murray, and I just don't really understand. I tweeted about it before. See if I can find the original one. Here. Hawks on the verge of trading for San Antonio's all-star guard DeJounte Murray. John Collins not part of the deal, just looking for picks. Prepping for the future. Maybe they want to be the team that moves up and get the French prospect at number 1 in the 2023 draft. Vic, I don't know how to say his last name yet. I don't understand what this is about. Murray is fairly young, right? Can't type. What are you going to do? 25 years old and had a really good season. I'm not getting it. He came back from the injury already and looked good and has been fairly healthy as far as stars go. I mean, you really only see 70 games out of people. And he took a huge leap this year. 21, 9, and 8. This is the guy you want to trade? I know you probably don't want to pay him on a team where you're not competitive. I get that. But if you trade him, Pop is on the way out the door, right? Like, there's no way. Why would he be trading for future picks and then realizing that he's probably not even going to be here to coach those picks that come to fruition unless he has a lot more time in the tank than I thought? I just don't see it. So I'm concerned with what their front office is doing, but Pop is usually in charge. So if you keep everyone together, I don't think they should make that trade to the Hawks. I think it would be good for the Hawks. Him and Trae Young fit really nicely together, to be honest. Both can handle the ball. Trae can play off the ball a little more, which they're desperate for, and both of them pass really, really well. That would be a scary combo. I mean, we're talking about all these guard combos so far. That seems to be the theme of the draft coming out of here, right? But if the Spurs can keep it together, I think Sohan would be really nice. And all of a sudden, you really just need scoring, which they went and got later. They got Branham, and they got Wesley. So they have scoring at the guard positions behind Murray, who scored 20 points per game on his own this year, even if he's not a dead-eye shooter necessarily. So you can see how Sohan would fit in here, and then maybe you get a big that can score it, and you're starting to work towards a team that is competitive again. And I want to see that happen before they go and trade their best player. That would be weird. I have a couple of second-round winners, which is pretty rare for me, but I pointed out the Raptors because I love this Koloko pick. And if you look at the Raptors depth chart, I don't really believe in their bigs very much. And Siakam, I mean, you could play him at small ball 5. I think he's probably on his way out. I would be looking for a trade partner if I'm the Raptors, because Scotty Barnes kind of took over the role that Siakam was filling as that Swiss Army knife small ball big that can also run point for you a little bit. So I like these 4, Van Vliet, Trent, Anunoby, Barnes, and Boucher. I like Precious too, to be honest. And I think Precious can play a different role than Koloko. Koloko's going to be a traditional roll to the basket, lob threat, defend the rim guy. Precious seems like a little smaller, do-it-all, small ball kind of player. And I think those could fill your center minutes for the whole season between the two of them. Pretty much. You need a third one, of course, but you can figure that out. You can keep Boucher for that or just get anybody, a warm body in there. Because I think those 6 players, Van Vliet, Trent, Anunoby, Barnes, Precious, and Koloko, is a pretty good rotation. And then you have the backup guards and you can see what to do with the rest of the team, but you're on the right track there. And if you could just add another hired gun to score the basketball off the bench, team's looking pretty good. And they finished the season strong after a bad start. So I really liked that pick, especially in the second round when you don't have to pay him. I thought he fell further than he should have. And considering some of the talent that I saw, like Walker Kessler, I don't think is necessarily a better player than Christian Koloko at all. And not necessarily. I don't think he is. Plus, Minnesota wanted him, and they already have Towns, so you're going to get a 22nd overall pick to be a backup center, unless you think that you're trying to play Towns next to a big some of the times, which I guess that's what they're trying to do, but I don't really understand it. So I like the way the Raptors went value-wise. And then I wanted to point out the Cavs. I don't know if this is the greatest pick, but considering they got him 49th overall, Isaiah Mobley, who played with Evan Mobley, their brothers, at USC, they looked pretty good together. I don't know if Isaiah Mobley's ever going to really move the needle, right? But this does tell me, similar to what the Bucks did in bringing in the Antetokounmpo brothers, that they understand how important Evan Mobley is to their franchise, and they're trying their best to just keep him happy at all costs, which means if you can spend a second-round pick, 49th overall, on his brother to keep him happy and to keep them off the court engaged and on the court stimulated, I think that's a really good thing. Although I got to say, I have the Warriors as a winner just because they get my guy, my UConn guy. Tyrese Martin, good player. Look out for that. I feel similar to him at the end of the draft as I did like Lou Dort as an undrafted going to the Thunder. Like, he can kind of do a little of everything, really defends, can play probably small ball 4 and also play shooting guard for you. I like Martin. Probably overstating it, though, because he's a UConn guy, but what are you going to do? Losers, Kings, do we need to say any more? Now, I like Keegan Murray a lot. In my draft breakdown, if you listen to that and now you're listening to this, you're like, Mike, what are you talking about? You said how much you like Keegan Murray, how he could go top 5. Yeah, true, but you knew, if you're the Kings, you should know that everybody wanted Jaden Ivey at 4, right? So if you're drafting for fit, which I don't really like to do, which I think they did do, but whatever. If you like Keegan, let's just say you like Keegan Murray better than Jaden Ivey, even in a vacuum. Fit aside, you think that Keegan Murray is your guy. Fine. You still need to accept the fact that everyone around there was probably willing to trade up to number 4 to go get Ivey. You at least could have flipped with the Pistons, probably. You could have done something. I don't understand how there's no trade partners to figure this out when the Knicks were reportedly calling the Pistons constantly after the 5th pick just to try over and over again to get Ivey, knowing that he fell down that far. There had to be other teams that were willing to do the same thing, so I don't understand. They left value on the table there. It's not Murray that's the problem. It's just the philosophy and the lack of understanding of value that I really don't like from the Kings, and I had to mark them as a loser there. Also, I don't understand how Keegan Murray and Sabonis are going to play together, really. I think Keegan Murray can play the 3, but you want to have the flexibility to play him at the 4. And if you have Sabonis and Keegan Murray in there together as a small ball lineup, you're not at all going to be able to defend anybody inside the paint, which is a little bit scary. So, yeah, I just think they kind of screwed up there. I don't love what the Hornets did because they drafted Duren and then traded him away and then drafted Mark Williams, which is fine, but I don't see how they moved the needle at all to put some dynamic talent around their young star player, and all that money they spent is kind of going away, and I don't feel like they addressed it because, I mean, we should actually go to Spotrac here. Because how long are their guys there? Bridges is a free agent, I think. Yeah, he's not even on here. He unrestricted? We have this on here open already. Miles Bridges, restricted free agent. So they could bring him back, right? But you have Hayward on here for this season and next season. You have Rozier this season and next season. You have LaMelo. But you're not ready to compete now. And I don't see how... I mean, unless you think LaMelo and Mark Williams is going to push you over the top, you need to make decisions on all your players. And generally, when you need to make decisions on all your players, you have to get backup plans for them. And I just didn't see them do that. So it's not that I don't like the Mark Williams pick. I think that's a good pick, and he can anchor the center position for them, sure. But you didn't at all try to get a replacement for Hayward, Rozier, Bridges, PJ Washington. And if some of those guys walk and you get nothing for it, you're not going to be... I mean, you're definitely not going to be improved, and you might take a step backwards unless you think Mark Williams is the savior of the team, or LaMelo is just going to go complete all-pro level, which I don't know if he is. So I had to mark them as a loser. And then the Bulls, had to put them as a loser as well, only because they have a really good team, but how many guards do you need? You took another guard, and I just don't... I mean, Levine, if he leaves, you're in trouble anyway, right? But now you have Lonzo, Ayo, Kobe White. Maybe Kobe White doesn't come back. Maybe they move him, whatever. Levine, Caruso, Terry, DeMar. How are you fitting all these guys in a rotation? Now, you saw DeMar play some small ball 4 in a really small lineup, so maybe you can fit 4 guards at a time. But even if you do, and say Caruso goes into the starting lineup, you bump Patrick Williams down and say Vucevic gets traded or whatever happens. Patrick Williams or Vucevic on the court at one time, right? And then you have Lonzo, Levine, DeMar, and Caruso starting. You still have Ayo, Kobe White, and Terry off the bench. It's just too many people. Are they preparing to not bring Levine back? And do they think that Dalen Terry is going to fill that gap? Because you had a really good season. I would want to build on that. I would want to bring the guys back, see what you can do with a healthy Caruso and healthy Lonzo. But drafting another guard just made no sense to me at all. I would have probably drafted a center here. I mean, where did they get him? 18th. I don't know if there was a perfect center to be had, but you could have gotten at least a swing guy that can play the wing and play some small ball 4 or 5. This just feels like a guy that's going to be buried in the depth chart, and maybe they cut Kobe White and fine, whatever, but it just feels like, how do you take another guard there? It's very silly at the 18th overall pick. I would have sooner traded out. I didn't really understand that one. So then we go to the weirdos. I'm going to blast through these. The Knicks are obviously one of them. I mark them as a weirdo because I don't think it's done. I think they got a bunch of picks, and I think they're going to look to flip that perhaps into a superstar if they can package picks or move in some capacity. But when you're not that great a team and all you did was clear cap space for Jalen Brunson, who is a cool piece, but you're going to pay him a ton, and then all of a sudden he's going to be a little less cool of a piece, and he's not thrusting you. This is not clearing space for LeBron and KD. This is clearing space for a guy that fits pretty well with RJ Barrett, but we don't know exactly what needs to go next to him yet. So I don't know. This is a weird draft. You needed to improve if you're the Knicks, and I'm not willing to say they were a loser because I think they're going to turn those picks into something. But then they traded a first-round pick and Kemba just to clear some salary space, and I don't get it. So, weirdo. Blazers, weird. You're picking Shaedon Sharpe, high upside stuff, but you need to put someone next to Dame now. You went and got Jeremy Grant. You figured that they were trying to gear up to have a team that's competitive now, and then you took the one guy that is probably going to need a full year to kind of figure out who he is because he didn't play in college last year. So it's not, I get the upside pick, but, and I don't want you to draft for fit necessarily, right? It just, the timeline, I don't necessarily understand it. Pelicans, a lot of people loving this Dyson Daniels pick because you already kind of have everything you need and you're taking a high upside guy. But look, he fits nicely next to CJ. I just don't think he's going to be ready to start or even play that much in the league next year. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm lower on him than a lot of people are. But I don't see a world where you can play him and Alvarado together on the court at the same time ever. So now you're saying CJ needs to play pretty much all the minutes, or else you need a 4-guard rotation, in which case you didn't really fix your problem anyway. And it makes sense to get a defender and distributor, but you really want the ball in Ingram and Zion's hands most of the time, and CJ. So is Daniels ever going to be able to show off that distribution? I don't know. And this just felt like at the number 8 pick, I don't know how much they improved their team, which is a little alarming for a team that you think is going to make a big leap this year. They might make a big leap anyway, so this might not come out in the wash, you know? But I want to see what Daniels does. I don't know. We'll see. I didn't really love it. Warriors I had as weirdos because they constantly do this. They took Patrick Baldwin. Let's see. Draft by year. I feel like the Warriors have done this a lot where they're like, our team is already good. Let's just take some guys that are high upside. Kuminga, Moody, Wiseman, even Poole. And Patrick Baldwin fits that too. He had a really poor year in college, but was a top 5 high school recruit. So they're just trying to say like, hey, we don't need you to come in and dominate. Come into our system. We'll figure out what we can get from you. They're the best at extracting talent from people, right? They did it with Wiggins perfectly en route to a championship. So that's why I like the pick. It's just bizarre. It's just what the Warriors are able to do because of the core that they have, which is a weird thing and not everyone shares. The Wolves I mentioned before, not understanding what they're doing so much. They took LaRavia, who I don't understand why he's going 19th overall, by the way, but then they traded him to Memphis, and then they kind of flipped for Walker Kessler, which I don't know how he fits next to Towns. I can't understand those two playing next to each other, and they didn't really improve in other ways when they seemed like a team that could take a leap. So not sure what they should have done, but I don't get that. And then the next two weirdos are not necessarily draft related, but more free agency and trade related. The Nets, I mean, everyone's talking about the Nets and possible destinations for Kyrie, and the Lakers thing I don't really understand. They're the only one going after him, but they're going to what? They're going to give up all this money, and where's Westbrook going to clear the space? And he's going back to LeBron, and that's just going to be fine. And putting him in the spotlight of LA is going to make things better. I don't know. I don't get it. And then the KD situation, is he going to get moved? If Kyrie goes, are the Nets going to stick with KD? Is he going to be mad that his buddy's gone? I mean, who knows what to do if you're them, but they don't really improve in the draft. And so what's the plan? You can't just trade everyone and tank away, right? Because you traded picks away to get these guys. So I don't understand what you're supposed to do. And then the Suns didn't improve at all in the draft, and they have this Ayton question mark who doesn't look like he's going to come back. And then they didn't upgrade at all elsewhere. They should have made maneuvers before the draft to go get a guy. Like if you could have put Koloko in a Suns uniform, like another Arizona guy, another Arizona big like Ayton, at least you could have said like, hey, we're prepared if he walks. And now, if he walks away, you better get something in return in a sign-and trade because I don't know what else you're supposed to do. So that's kind of where I'm at with the draft. It was a fun draft night. I do got to say, the draft coverage, they need to figure out something different to do because the TV is so far behind Twitter. And this year, Twitter was having a hard time keeping up with all the trades. And the TV is impossible to watch from the 10th pick on because all the trades are not done yet, so you're trying to figure it out. You're forced to go to Twitter anyway. But then when you're on Twitter, you might not want to be spoiled if you enjoy watching the draft like I do. So then you're stuck in limbo. And I don't know what they need to do, if they need less emphasis on the picks themselves and they just need to focus on analysis and have some people just hire the Twitter goons to update you constantly on the television broadcast so they're not as far behind. Maybe they just need to focus less on the announcement of the player, still show it, but really be up to date with everything that's happening in real time. And they're too addicted to the old format, and it's going to have to be overhauled. So I really enjoy the draft, but they need to do something about it. I wanted to take a quick look at free agents before everything really gets going in July. We'll probably do another video on it eventually, but we've talked a ton about the top people, the Hardens, Westbrook, Beal, whatever. And some of these are restricted. Some of these are not. Some of these are, we don't want to get into everything, but I wanted to look further down because I think there's a lot of good free agents in this draft that are not really being talked about. Rubio coming off an injury, but very interesting. Gary Harris, I don't really have on this list, although I still think can play a good role for a team. Nurkic. No reason Nurkic couldn't be on a championship team. TJ Warren hasn't played in forever, but his instant offense off the bench for a team that needs wing scoring, which who doesn't? Ayton, we've talked about to death. Montrezl Harrell, no idea what to do with him at all. I don't think anybody does, but he's going to go to a team and play a meaningful role that plays a lot of minutes. And you go further down. I really like Marvin Bagley. I'd make an attempt to go get him. I keep bringing it back to the Warriors who extract the perfect amount of talent from everybody, and I know not everyone has circumstances like that, but if he can go to a team that can really figure out what he does the best, then I think it's not over for Bagley, and I would take a shot on him. Tyus Jones, I really like as a bench guard too. Thomas Bryant can put in some time. PJ Tucker, everybody wants. Jared Culver didn't really work out, but I'd take a flyer on him. The talent is there. Mo Bamba had some really good moments. If you're desperate, like the Suns could go get Mo Bamba to replace Ayton and at least eat into some of that production. I think there's a lot of guys here. Colin Sexton, I don't know if Cleveland's going to bring him back. JaVale McGee has like 3 rings and has been to like 4 or 5 finals. Lou Williams getting up there in age, but can still fill it up probably off the bench for somebody. Bruce Brown, I like that. Kevin Knox, keep him away from the NBA. He'll never play. Miles Bridges is going to get a big deal somewhere. There's a lot of people. Dante DiVincenzo restricted, but got traded around and can play a bigger role than deserved. He should have stayed in Milwaukee, and they would have used him, maybe won a ring. I mean, I don't want to go that far that DiVincenzo would have put them over the top, but there's some interesting stuff here. Skipping over some of the older guys, Markieff Morris can still play a role, unrestricted. Anthony Simons is restricted. He'll go back, obviously. Austin Rivers, I still think, can play a role for a team off the bench. Drummond, most definitely. Oladipo is going to get paid. There's no doubt about that. Otto Porter's probably going to get paid more than he's worth because he had that. He's worth a lot. I don't mean to say that, but he had that really good run on a championship team. Everyone got to see him play defense in big spots. Bielitsa, I like. The Warriors are going to bring back some of these guys. Peyton will go back to the Warriors. Monk, unrestricted. I don't know if the Lakers are going to be able to pay all these people. I don't know what they're thinking about doing, but while that didn't work out for them, I think Monk is he's 24. That guy can score it and control the ball, and I like that. Hartenstein, pretty good also. There's so many names here. Naz Reid is controlled. It's a little bit different. I'm not even done. I mean, there's more. Austin Reeves, Laker legend. Who else? There's a few more that I had seen that I really liked. I don't think Dragic is necessarily done. Someone will pick him up for a bench guard role. Cousins looked pretty good as a fill-in for Jokic. He's only 32. I mean, the injuries are scary, but he hasn't been injured in a little while. And I just think there's a lot of guys. Javon Carter. I mean, I'm not going to go much further than this, but I think Javon Carter can play a role. Should have played more for Milwaukee. Still young, can defend at the guard position. You need defensive guys at the guard position everywhere. So I do think there's going to be a lot of motion at the top and attention for this top talent in this free agency class. But don't sleep on the depth. There's a lot of moves that are going to be made. And teams like the Pelicans, who I kind of didn't really love their draft, and that's just a random example off the top of my head of guys that have their main pieces in place, but just need to fill in the bench depth and the veteran leadership, can take big leaps by pressing the right buttons in free agency. So we'll get back to that as the season goes on. The offseason goes on. It's sad to say that it's over, but it is. And in July, we'll do another video at some point. But next is going to be our top 10 all time, our top 10 current. Then after that, we'll splurge into a couple of different sports and then get back to basketball on the tail end of the free agency frenzy that's about to happen. Of course, always at MikeTheMush Sports on the socials. You'll get reactions there. Like the video, subscribe. It helps the channel. Leave a comment on what you think. We'll see you next time. I appreciate you. Peace out. Go Knicks. But, I mean, come on. They do nothing. They literally made me sit the whole entire time during draft night not knowing what they're doing. They still haven't done anything. Hopefully they make a splash. I don't know. What are you going to do?